Welcome to ACTPod, a podcast show that sheds light on the stories and impact of the social sector. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. Let's begin the change.
Hello there. You're welcome to yet another insightful episode of your favorite podcast show, ACTPod, our story, our continent. My name is Abiodun Owo, and I am going to be your host on today's episode. With me here is the head of sustainability at Lagos Business School, Pan Atlantic University. And today we will be talking about one of the challenges being faced by, the nonprofits in this region of the world, which is about sustaining themselves. So please welcome with me, Oreva Atanya.
Thank you very much, Abiodun. I'm very happy to be here to discuss this very awesome topic.
Okay, yeah. I am happy to be here with you as well. So before we dive in, I would like to know who Oreva is. And I know that Lagos Business School is a business school, of course, but then you work with nonprofits as well. So pretty much tell us about yourself and the work you have done with the various communities, either for profit or the nonprofits.
All right, thank you. My name is Oreva Ogene. That's the longer version of the name, Atanya. I'm a philosopher. My first degree is in philosophy.
Right.
So maybe that was my introduction to things beyond just profits, but more of impact. I think that played a role in that background. So I run a center at the business school. It's called the LBS Sustainability Center. Okay. So, and interestingly, while we're a business school, LBS is actually part of a non-profit organization called the Pan Atlantic University Foundation.
Sure, yes.
Yes. Yes, so our primary, let's say, customers and clients are private sector businesses, but our own institution is non-profit. So we also are very passionate about helping both for-profit and non-profit organizations by developing responsible leaders and managers for both sectors.
Okay, so talking about sustainability now, today's discussion, we actually want to tie it around the need for our non-profits to begin to, if they haven't already, begin to think like businesses because they need to be built to last. You know this saying that, yes, they are non-profits, however, they are not for loss either. So do you want to tell us how crucial is it, for non-profits to think like businesses, to have business mindsets and, in practical terms, what would this mean?
What does that mean? Yes. I think first is non-profits needs to disabuse that word business, because automatically non-profits think they are not businesses because they think business is about making financial profits. But business is just about enterprise. It's about taking resources and using it to create value to meet different needs in society. Most for-profit businesses do this with a specific goal of having financial profit at the end of the day. But non-profit organizations do the same thing. It's just that the objective overall is to create some sort of social good or social value. Sometimes that's in terms of people's behavior. For non-profits that work in advocacy, policy areas, it even goes to even the kinds of services they provide to communities, to government, even sometimes to for-profit organizations. So business is not necessarily a word that implies that you have to be making profits that is shared back to shareholders. That's just for for-profit businesses. Non-profit organizations are also businesses. They are enterprises, but they have to be running in a sustainable manner that allows them to meet their mission, allows them to run and also take care of their employees, add value to the resources that they have received, whether it's donations, whether it's in-kind support, and so on and so forth. So business is not something that is separate from the nonprofit sector. I think that's the first thing. And once nonprofits understand this, then it means they take off this hat of, I'm doing charity only, and say, well, how do I do what I do, but do it in a sustainable manner, which makes you now have to think of, how am I using the resources that I have, whether it's people, whether it's money, whether it's my building, whether it's the volunteers or the relationships that I have.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. So now, the for-profit business and non-profit business, what actually distinguishes them is that, okay, these ones, they do good, but they're making profits. These ones do good, but they are not making profit, right?
I think, again, that's even the issue. So profit just, what is profit?
Okay.
Profit is just revenue from entrepreneurial or enterprise activities that goes back to the investors. That's the difference between profit and in the non-profit sector, what you would call surplus. So
Okay.
every organization, I think apart from government-run or government-owned organizations, most organizations, whether you're for-profit or non-profit, you have to be running on the financial side with the aim of being a value adder, not someone that's just deducting value. And when you now bring this to financial terms, for a for-profit or strictly commercial enterprise, or what we call businesses, that means at the end of the day, what's the financial addition to what the business had? That's what we call profit. For the for-profits, with the legal backing that they have in how they are set up, they are allowed to take that profit and share it as dividends to the investors, the promoters of the business, the owners of the business. For a non-profit organization, you're still supposed to do the same thing. Add value, social, financial, economic, environmental, behavioral. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the finances, the non-profit's surplus or profit is not to be shared with any individual. It's to be reinvested in the purpose of the business or the purpose of the enterprise or the purpose of the non-profit. So being a non-profit does not automatically mean you have to be running a financial loss. You should be running at a surplus because finances or whatever you can account for when it comes to your books, it's just a financial way of tracking the value you are creating or the value that you have contributed to society. And there's nothing that says that you must always do this at a loss. In fact, doing it at a loss consistently will actually make sure that you will not have any resources to carry on with the purpose of the organization.
A few years down the line.
So first of all, let's disabuse our mind. Business does not just mean for-profit business. There's business that's for profit, commercial. There's business that is non-profit. The funds that come out of a non-profit business are for the purpose of the organization, whether it's a school that is set up like Lagos Business School to raise responsible leaders and managers. But at the end of the day, whatever surplus comes out of our operations goes back into the schools running, the investment, the infrastructure, the recruiting of professors and all that, rather than being shared as profit for anyone who contributed to it. So that's really the difference.
All right, I'm being schooled here. You heard that. If you didn't hear it, just please rewind. Okay, yeah. So we'll come back to, the issue with the surplus and, ensuring that as a non-profit, you do not run at a loss. I wanted to quickly go into some of the things that happen around, such as businesses that you see around that. Once there's an exit of, say, the founder or whoever started the business, 3, 4, give it max 5 years down the line, the business dies. And this is not different from what happens in the non-profit space as well. Once, the founder exits, maybe by, natural causes or just simply exits, they are not able to sustain themselves again. Why do you think this happens, and what are they supposed to do to guard against that happening?
Yes, thank you. It's a very interesting question, and interesting is something that cuts across both for-profit or non-profit. Studies have shown, and I think it's getting even worse with the social economic terrain that we find ourselves nowadays, where a lot of organizations, whether they are businesses or non-profits, running either on passion or in survival mode. So you can't run on that for a very long time. So you find that a lot of organizations, even with the presence of a strong founder, may not outlast the 5th year. A lot of studies on SMEs have found that many SMEs die in the first 5 years. Even now with the startup ecosystem of startups trying to do amazing things, you see a number of them dropping off and not being able to continue, no matter how beautiful their business model was. And same thing is true with the nonprofit. In our context, particularly in Africa, where there are a lot of NGOs, CSOs, community groups, community-based organizations, just trying to create some value, especially in the areas where there are socio-economic gaps.
Yeah.
So you have a proliferation of organizations, usually built out of passion, built out of someone's dream to help, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. But at the end of the day, there's a problem that these organizations are created to solve.
Yeah.
But in trying to solve a problem, there has to be a model that's supporting that passion that will allow it to last. So I would say the reason, if I was to summarize why this is happening, is that in the nonprofit sector particularly, a lot of nonprofits are set up as passionate organizations or causes. Now, you can run as a cause for a year, 2 years, but at some point you have to transition from being a cause or being a passion to being an enterprise, whether a small, a micro, medium enterprise. But you find that for the organizations that are able to actually have long-lasting impact and also last a long time, if the problem they are set up to solve is something that's consistent, they have to transition from being a cause or a passion to being an enterprise to being an institution. And in our climate, unfortunately, a lot of the activities, no matter how well informed or how passionate, stay in that phase of being a cause or a passion. They may actually now formalized. So a lot more NGOs are registered with government. They have bank accounts. They have CSE. They apply for Act Foundation grants. Yes, they're getting more structured, and there's some improvements in terms of that, trying to formalize as enterprises. But if you're going to be here 30 years, 20 years, to be able to continue to serve maybe that particular demographic group, which even though you work on these problems here and there are some of these problems that are just consistent because of our environment, you would need to be institutionalized in order to actually continue to do this in a sustainable manner. And there are a few organizations, particularly in Nigeria, that I'm proud to mention. The Nigerian Conservation Foundation, it's one. It's existed now for 4 decades, 40 years, right? And if you notice their business, their model of operating, they are not just doing advocacy or running on the passion. They actually have enterprises within their institution. So it's not a surprise that they've existed this long. Whether you're looking at governance systems, which is board of directors, trustees, an advisory council, the organogram of the organization, such that recruitment of talent, retention of talent, exit of talent is somehow managed within that institutional system, rather than, okay, we're doing this very good thing in society, we're touching lives, we're making this impact, we can show you our impact figures. And then if 2 or 3 people somehow are not available in the organization, we will still be able to achieve these objectives. We will still be able to be as effective as we are right now. So those are some of the institutional and enterprise questions that nonprofits have to ask and have to answer, really. Yes.
Okay. So nonprofits, they usually start as just taking lessons,
passions.
Causes. They should move from there to being an enterprise, and then from there to being an institution.
Yeah.
That's food for thought.
Yes.
I picked on, something you said about it. When 2-3 people are not around, what's going to happen to that organization? Do they still move on? And that brings me to my next, thing on succession planning.
Yeah.
I don't know how strong this is in the non-profit space, but how crucial do you think it is for us, and why should we even consider succession planning?
Yeah, succession planning is a matter of survival. Most times, non-profit organizations think, if I just have enough money, I will survive. If I have enough grants, I will be able to do this long term. But really, the way non-profits are set up, a lot of the functionalities and the impact areas that we work on are people-centric. You can't actually do it without the people. There are very few nonprofits whose model of impact is maybe based on technology, where they can rely on a data center somewhere and the organization can still do what it does. it's a lot of things that we do are actually people-centric. The relationships we've built, the culture of the organization, the reputation of the organization in the communities that we serve, the reputation of the organization with the donors, with the volunteers, with the government institutions that rely on the services of that organization. So if there is no deliberate system of managing those people-centric issues and people-centric services, you will find that, okay, we do good, and then somehow maybe our founder says, okay, I'm tired of Nigeria, I think I'm going to Japa, leave this place, I've done my good work, and there is no system in place for the organization to keep doing what it does. One of the major reasons that happens is because of this passion and cause mentality that we stay in sometimes, a lot of things are built around founders and a very few number of people.
Right.
Yeah, most nonprofit organizations are not necessarily thinking of their model in a way that they want to have a large team, because a lot of our work is focused on the beneficiaries, not really on the health of the institution. But the health of the institution is important, but the health of the organization is important. If the organization is not staffed, it can't serve the communities.
Right.
If it's not properly, if the right talents are not in the right places with the right expertise, the effectiveness of the organization will be limited. Then when that comes to succession planning now is, if you want to do this for the next 5 years, you have to realize that talent may come and talent will go. Even the founder, no matter how passionate, is a human being. And things may change in that founder's life. It may even be mortality, it may be health, it may be a personal family issue. Yeah. And the person cannot be available to run the organization or have the same amount of time dedicated to the work of the organization. So whatever system allows the organization to keep functioning, succession plan is the only thing that can make that work. And succession planning doesn't mean you have to have this big organogram with specific salary and, steps and cadre part, but it's just having some sort of plan, preferably documented, because at least documents don't lie. Sure. And then whenever a person is not available, it's something that can be referenced. So succession planning should be documented, meaning, okay, what happens or which kind of people do we need in particular roles and where do we get them? That's really the summary of what your succession plan does for you. Sometimes I think because of our African context, we think of succession plan like, oh, who's going to be the next Igwe or the next king? But sometimes key succession planning impacts are not even really about the executive director or the CEO. It's just about where are the key parts of the organization, whether it's finance, whether it's programs, whether it's managing our volunteers. There are key roles in the organization that if that person or nobody is there to man that particular role, it will have impacts on how effective you are. It will have impacts on how much you're spending. So even going back to the first point about financial sustainability of the organization, having the right talent and then planning, where do I get this talent? Am I getting them internally? If I'm getting them internally, it means I have to be recruiting now for roles that I would need someone for 5 years from now.
Okay.
If I'm not able to do that internally, it means I have to have a network of volunteers or affiliates or people that have relationships with my organization so that if I do need someone, there's a pool I can go and quickly get someone from.
So they can grow into
people
that.
Who preferably already identify with the passion and identify with the cause of the organization. Because in the non-profit space, passion is important because usually you're solving very difficult problems. People taking jobs in non-profit organizations really cannot be taking it just like they're taking a typical commercial-facing job. You're facing people, you're impacting people's lives in most cases. So the passion is important. So my advice would be for non-profit organizations to build a succession plan looking at internal talent and then affiliate talents, people that are already in relationship with the organization. Even if you can't groom within your organization, preferably that's better. But if you can't groom, can you groom within your community? So that if there is a need for it, there's always a pool of people that can come and continue the work.
Okay, so pretty much they need to first look within,
yes,
and then before they start looking outwards. Awesome.
Yeah.
So Still on the challenges that nonprofits face, and of course, even in these times, it's even getting
economically
exactly. The
interesting.
funds are dwindling, the funds are reducing, the cost of living is getting higher and higher, the cost of doing things is increasing. And then they're not getting as much funds as they would.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for nonprofits to survive these challenging times?
Yeah.
How can they maintain grit? How can they continue to stay afloat in these challenging times?
Yeah, so this, I don't know if it's particularly for Nigeria, nonprofits in Nigeria.
We can do Africa.
Yes, across Africa. I think first is to resist the temptation to go into survival mode. I think it's very difficult, considering all the, maybe you're getting emails, grants or support that you're expecting. You get the email saying, sorry, this is not going to happen this year or the next 2 years, or this your work has been completely wiped out of our organization strategy, so you're not even in our grantee pool anymore. And the temptation is then to go into survival mode. And that's where you find organizations just taking any type of grant just to survive and keep going. So you find an organization that says, they're an education-focused organization, and that's their impact area. And today I've seen programs that have something to do with a completely different impact area. Sometimes that's where reputation, it has negative impacts on reputation. It also has negative impacts, even sometimes on the morale of the people in the organization, because they're like, okay, where are we going now? What are we doing?
Yes.
We're not built for this. We're not structured for this, and all that. So the first thing is resist the temptation to go into survival mode. Preferably, if you were already running as an enterprise, there should be some reserve funds that are dedicated for times like this, where there's economic downturn. So there's something that at least can keep the lights on, can keep salaries being paid, at least even if you do have to make some sacrifices here and there, but at least the organization doesn't have to completely start from ground zero. If you are able to do that, which is the preferred scenario, it means that the organization has to go back to their impact model. Let me not call it business. Yes, their business or impact model.
Yeah.
So go back to the cause or the reason for your organization. Are the things that are your value proposition for this work, are they still relevant? Is it still needed? Even if it's needed, the way you are serving your community, is that the only way you can serve your community right now? I think during the COVID pandemic, it forced everybody to innovate and change very quickly.
Yeah.
Yes, but now it's like we're trying to go back into our traditional way of doing it. We're back, there's no pandemic anymore, so let's go back and start doing the programs exactly the way we're doing it. Right? And then the economic issues are coming, which is making it clear that you can't really do that.
No, you can't.
You can't. So let's go back to what we did during COVID. Some organizations, unfortunately, didn't scale through that. A lot of organizations died that period. But organizations that went back and looked at their model and said, okay, I'm doing this, and I usually do this. I have to travel and go to this community. I have to send a team of program executives to go here and deliver. Well, can I find people in that community there who can do the work? They don't have to travel. Everybody innovated, doing the same work, but found a more effective way to do it, given the environment that we're in. So I think that's the two things that organization. Number one, please check if you have some reserve so that you don't have to go into panic mode. And then go back and look at the impact model you're operating. Is this the only way you can do what you're doing? There are probably other partnership and financing opportunities that you have, but because you're trying to operate the programs or the initiatives exactly the same way you have, you are not open to those other avenues or ways of creating impact. So those are the two suggestions I'll give.
Awesome. Yeah. There you have it from Oreva again. All right. Okay. I wish we could go on and on, but then, of course, we have to wind down.
Yeah.
That will bring me to, your relationship with ACT Foundation. Yeah. Do you want to tell us about your partnership with us, you know,
Yeah.
and how has that been so far?
Okay, so now I'm speaking on behalf of the LBS Sustainability Center, not just as myself anymore. Lagos Business School Sustainability Center became a grantee of the ACT Foundation in 2019. That was our first cycle. And ACT Foundation is our partner on a very innovative initiative. It's called the Leadership Programs for Sustainable Waste Management. Usually people don't hear leadership and waste in the same sentence.
What's the correlation?
What's this? So it's a program that is deliberately developing responsible leaders and sustainable business mindset drivers for the waste management sector, specifically to address environmental pollution issues in Nigeria. So we train young waste or environmentally passionate entrepreneurs, young people who are managers or entry-level career executives in facility management sector, waste management, any company or organization that interfaces with waste collection, waste aggregation, waste transformation, hopefully, which is the ultimate goal of the program, is to develop a system in Nigeria particularly where a lot of things that we call waste don't end up as waste anyway. But resource recovery systems can be established through enterprise and institutions.
Yes.
Right? Not just passion. Yes. To build systems for waste collections, recycling, and we've been doing that now for a number of years. We've had over 200 people go through that program. So now you see a lot more recycling companies all over the place. You see a lot more resource recovery, even the advocacy around environmental pollution, plastic pollution, the blue economy, managing our marine resources. So we're very glad to be seeing our alumni making an impact all over that.
Yeah. Awesome. It was really nice having you here, to come talk about, how non-profits, can continue to stay sustainable in the business that they do. Yeah. So don't just remain with your passion. Move from passion to becoming an enterprise and then an institution. I have become a lecturer. Thank you so much once again, Oreva.
Thank you,
and this is where we call it a wrap on this episode. Do join us next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to ACTPod. For inquiries and feedback, please reach us on actpod@actrustfoundation.org. Follow us on social media at actfoundation_ on Instagram and Twitter, and Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation on Facebook. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. ACTPod, our story, our continent.